I like Drew Lock. He's a quarterback out of Missouri, and he made some good plays last year. The Missouri went 8-5. And honestly, it's really hard to ignore a guy like Drew Lock who throws the ball as well as he does. His arm talent jumps off the screen. It's incredible. This one was really difficult. This quarterback analysis is one of the more challenging ones I've ever done. It forced me to make a decision. How am I going to evaluate players? Should I focus on trying to project what they could be in the future, or should I just report what I saw on film? And I think I might be able to do both, but really I want to focus on what Drew Lock did in college and not what he could become, because I don't know. I think potential is kind of an overrated term. He has a lot of potential. He does really great. But this is Drew Lock's skill set. He has a huge arm. He has a lot of throws into really tight windows downfield. Those are called NFL throws. People say that a lot. That's great. You like that. That is what you want to see from a quarterback in college entering the NFL draft. And he also moves around pretty well. I didn't realize how well his legs are. He ran the zone read in college. He would get, he even at times would get 11 to 15 yards. He can run a little bit, more than I expected. He throws the ball well on the move. And, I don't know. He threw a lot of good passes last year. And by the way, a lot of Drew Lock's passes were dropped. I talked about how, Jarrett Stidham has had passes dropped like no one else. Daniel Jones has had passes dropped like, oh my goodness. And up there with them is also Drew Lock. I mean, this guy, I felt really bad for him. He did not have great wide receivers, and it really hurt his numbers. Actually, watching Drew Lock made me wonder what would have happened if DK Metcalf from Ole Miss and Drew Lock played together. Because Drew Lock didn't have a guy who could catch the ball deep downfield, and DK Metcalf at Ole Miss didn't have a quarterback who could throw him the ball deep downfield. Man, I wish they'd played together, because their tape would have looked so much better if they'd been on the same team. Now, frankly, many of Drew Lock's interceptions were not that bad. I expected worse. I thought he was little I watched last year during the season, I saw a guy who made okay decisions. And actually, I was impressed. Regularly, the ball bounced off his wide receiver's hands. His ability to read defenses was not as bad as I would have thought it was. Now, that being said, he had one really, really awful interception in the third quarter in the rain against South Carolina. Missouri's trying to set up a screen pass. The running back falls over. And instead of throwing the ball into the dirt, Drew Lock makes a boneheaded move. He throws the ball up for grabs. Even though, again, his wide receiver has fallen over, there is nobody for Drew Lock to throw the ball to. And it's an easy pick six for South Carolina. It's awful. You cannot have that. There's another interception early in the Alabama game. It's simply a bad throw. He misses inside. It's against man coverage. You cannot have that happen. That's not acceptable to be a top NFL quarterback prospect and do that. This guy is not ready to start week one in the NFL draft. Week one in the NFL. If you put Drew Lock as a starting quarterback week one in the NFL, he will not have success. He is not ready. He's a very, very weird prospect because 80% of the time, Drew Lock is a really solid, good quarterback. 10% of the time, Drew Lock is unbelievable. 10% of the time, Drew Lock is making throws that almost nobody else in college can make. You go, oh my God, that is a really tight window, 40 yards downfield. Wow, Drew Lock, you are unbelievable. That's 10%. But the other 10% from Drew Lock is an absolute mess. The highest of highs, but also the lowest of lows. Drew Lock is not a consistent quarterback that I have a lot of faith in. It's really, I don't like it. Here's an example. There's a throw against Alabama. It's 3rd and 12. He throws the ball on a line down the right sideline into a really tight window. Bam, that grabs your attention. That is an NFL throw. I love that. But then the very next play, he throws the ball in the dirt on a wide open crossing route. It's like, dude, it's so frustrating to watch Drew Lock because he's obviously really talented, but he's a project because he shoots himself in the foot so often. I mean, he threw a touchdown against Alabama that is one of the most impressive throws I saw all season. But he's too inconsistent. It's like, dang it. I'm rooting for him. He's like the little engine that could. I'm like, dude, please figure it out. And he just cannot consistently figure it out. Now, if an NFL coach can find a way to harness that incredible 10% and get that out of him all the time, then Drew Lock would be unbelievable. He's really that talented. He's such a good thrower of the football. But that's only 10% of the time, and you need that 10% to become 70, 80, I think 80% is probably the most you can get, but if you can get that from him, if you can get Drew Lock locked in, no pun intended, doing incredible all year, if that 10% grows, oh man, he's fantastic. But the fear is that the other 10%, the highest of highs, the fear is that the lowest of lows might grow as well, and you can have a wildly inconsistent, really kind of a mess of a quarterback. He's a risky pick. So I don't know. I'm torn up about Drew Lock. You know, my biggest struggle with Drew Lock is that I love his arm strength and I love his potential. You know, two things that are great, but he's really talented, but potential's a risky bet. You remember last year, 2 years ago in the draft, Patrick Mahomes was drafted. Patrick Mahomes had a ton of potential and was kind of a mess on the field. And Andy Reid, the Chiefs head coach, said, we can develop him. They did. They really elevated him as a player. Patrick Mahomes won the NFL MVP last year. But potential is something that Deshaun Kaiser also had, a quarterback out of Notre Dame a couple of years ago. He had a huge arm, ton of physical ability, and he did not develop. Potential sometimes is great, and sometimes potential is wasted. I don't know which end of the spectrum Drew Lock is going to go. I'm rooting for him. I hope he will do great. But I think the best thing Drew Lock can do is sit and wait for a year behind a guy like Eli Manning, maybe Joe Flacco, maybe Case Keenum. He's just not ready yet. He makes some really good reads. He often shredded man coverage with really good throws. But there's also really poor location at sometimes. Randomly at times, his accuracy just drops off a cliff. It's like, dude, what are you doing? So when it comes to just physical ability, Drew Lock is a first-round quarterback. But I really hope he sits for a year and can develop the other parts of his game, because physical ability is not everything it's about. That's not the only part of the game he needs to be able to play. And I'm really concerned about Drew Lock. I like him. I think he's a great guy. I want him to succeed. But he's really streaky, and you got to get things. He's got to be more measured if he's going to be a successful NFL quarterback. I like him. Don't love him. And also, it's worth noting, he made a lot of easy reads. I mean, Drew Lock had oftentimes, when man coverage is presenting itself, it's very easy to make a good read. You go, where's my best matchup? You throw the ball deep, and he hucks the ball deep a lot. That's not complicated. There's a play against, I can't remember who it is. They're running cover 0. It's like, yeah, that's a very simple, easy read, or guys are often wide open for Drew Lock. When things are easy, Drew Lock is fantastic. When they're not easy, his percentage drops off a cliff and he's not as good at quarterback. So Drew Lock, I really like him. I'm concerned about him because we're talking a lot about potential, a lot about arm strength, a lot about things that aren't necessarily decision-making. If a coach can work with him and bring his decision-making up and bring that 10% to like 60, 70, 80%, even 50%, I mean, he's a really fantastic quarterback when he's playing his best. So potential's there, but he's still risky because of how streaky Drew Lock is as a quarterback. I like him. I don't love him. And I'm not sure how to feel. Again, a lot of potential, and I'm not a big believer in the word potential. I like substance. Drew Lock doesn't have a lot of substance when I watch his film. Thank you so very much for watching. My name is Zach Schaumler. This is my podcast, Strong Opinion Sports, and it is my favorite thing in the entire world. You may not know this. My dream is to do this as my full-time job. I love it tremendously. And if you believe in that, if you believe in my dream, please do me a favor by helping me grow the show by telling your friends about it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, maybe a screenshot it, you put it on your Instagram story. It would be a huge help to me. I'm very appreciative of that. Another way you can help me is you can donate money to my PayPal, paypal.me/Zach Schaumler, or you can donate money to my Patreon, patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. If you have no money to give, no problem. I totally understand. I'm a broke college kid myself. But what you can do to help me, please help me grow by telling your friends about this podcast.